Yo, what's up guys? It's CJax back with another video, and today I'm gonna go ahead and be breaking down 2023 in superhero movies from start all the way to the finish, man. As you have realized, I didn't make a video for Aquaman 2. You'll see why in a second, because that movie was diabolical. But at the end of the day, I made a video months ago saying that 2023 needed to save superhero movies, and it ain't saved nothing, because this year was borderlining on being a disaster. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about each superhero movie, how I felt about them, rank them all from worst to best at the end, and let you know which one was my favorite and which one was my least favorite. So without further ado, Happy New Year. Let's get into the video. Now, before I get into it, I want to thank you guys so much for watching and remind you that my links to all my social medias are in the description of this video. Without further ado, let's continue this video. Thank you for watching and Happy New Year. All right, now we started off this year with Ant-Man Quantumania, a movie that many MCU fans were basically saying, oh, this is going to save Marvel. If you guys remember that, they were saying, oh, this is going to save Marvel, the multiverse, time travel, Kang. And the movie ended up being complete and utter garbage. Kang in this movie was okay at best. They alluded to him the entire film, and then when we finally saw him, he got beat by ants in about 20 minutes. I mean, gosh. Marvel has fallen off a cliff, and I believe that Ant-Man Quantumania was the movie that made the general public of MCU fans finally realized that the MCU was absolutely in shambles at this point. Ant-Man's character work in this movie is atrocious. Cassie Lang is boring and annoying. Same thing with the Wasp as usual. And honestly, Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym, they actually had a couple cool scenes, especially Janet's scenes with, young Kang and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the movie didn't do it. The action ain't great. The visuals weren't great. The plot's not great, and the villain is underwhelming, and the character arcs of storytelling is very, very bad. And on top of that, you could tell the movie needed more time to develop the plot and the story, but they didn't do it, all right? They gave us a rushed version of a garbage product. So at the end of the day, I'm going to go ahead and give Ant-Man Quantumania, what did I give it in the original review? Maybe a 4? I'm going to lower it down to a 3 because I'm feeling real generous, man. Merry Christmas, y'all. The movie was terrible. And next, I actually have a two-parter, because guess what? Shazam 2 dropped a month after Quantumania, but you know what other movie dropped this year that's the same thing as Shazam 2 repeated over again, but arguably worse? Blue Beetle. So they're both going to be grouped together here. I'll talk about them. They're both basically generic, cliche family movies with very, very bad dialogue. The villains are very cliche. They're not giving any backstory, actually. I was going to say they're not giving a lot. They ain't giving anything, so you can forget about that. They're garbage. The action scenes are not that good either. And on top of that, the humor is very hit or miss. Blue Beetle was funnier than Shazam 2, don't get me wrong, but the humor overall ain't great, y'all. Stop. And then when it comes to the characters, man, they're paper thin, all right? I hate to say this. Shazam, however, in Shazam 2, did have a decent arc. Like I said, he had a decent arc, okay? But the more I think about the movie as a whole, it just gets ultimately worse, man. And at the end of the day, I don't think I need to harp on this film for that long. I've made the reviews. I've talked about the movies. They're simply just not good. They're generic, cliche garbage, and that's why they both made less money than Morbius, or at least made around the same money as Morbius. It's embarrassing. Shazam was the beginning of when people started to really understand DC was coming to a close, or the DCEU was coming to a close at the end of this year, and Blue Beetle only continued that trend with giving us the same garbage that was in Shazam 2, just repeated and even worse. And nextly, I'm going to be talking about Guardians 3, which came out in May. Now, I'm not going to lie, bro. What I'm about to say, I've not said about really any MCU movies over the last couple years, except for maybe No Way Home and maybe one other. But Guardians 3 was actually pretty solid of a movie, okay? It's pretty cohesive. It's got some really good stuff in there. You got some great emotional scenes, some really good acting, some standout characters like Drax in here. Mantis is also pretty good. Rocket Raccoon, obviously, is very solid in this movie. The cinematography is very beautiful. And at the end of the day, the tone, I feel like, was pretty well balanced overall in comparison to movies like The Marvels or Ant-Man Quantumania or Thor Love and Thunder, etc. I think with this movie, it was just so much better than everything else the MCU had been making, so it really started to catch on. And, I got very grateful that they actually were able to put somewhat effort into a project for once in a very long time, that I honestly enjoyed this movie a bit more than I probably should have. It's not a perfect movie, obviously, because I do think that the pacing is not that great. I think the villain is very overrated as well. People are saying, High Evolutionary is one of the best villains in Marvel history. The High Evolutionary. Stop. he ain't that great. Okay, relax. We got Killmonger, we got Thanos, we got Zemo, and then everybody else, whatever. Marvel doesn't really make great villains anyways, at least in the MCU, so that's that. At the end of the day, Guardians 3 did give us a pretty solid culmination to multiple different Guardians characters in this film. I wish they would have done more with Gamora, but for the most part, man, Drax, like I said, Mantis, Rocket Raccoon, even Nebula as well. I feel like multiple characters got a chance to shine in this movie. I think that Star-Lord honestly was a little bit underwhelming in this, surprisingly, because the story is sometimes unbalanced with Rocket Raccoon and the other Guardians, but when the characters get their moments, man, and especially in the third act of this movie, you get the great action scene with, the No Sleep Till Brooklyn song playing and stuff. Like, it was pretty cool, okay? I'm not gonna lie. Third act of this movie is honestly very good, but the rest of the movie is just kind of solid or decent. Pacing's not great, you get the point. But overall, Guardians 3, I would deem that as a success for Marvel, who has only been able to drop bad content for the last 2 years. But yes, Guardians 3, 7.5 out of 10, maybe a little higher. It was fine. And y'all, next is the movie that everybody in the world seems to love, except for myself, Across the Spider-Verse. Now, as some of you may know, I made a massive rant about this movie after I watched it months ago, basically explaining it's an overrated garbage mess of a movie. And I also made a video explaining why the canon was dumb, etc. But just to make this short, okay, let's make this concise. Everyone who's saying, Across the Spider-Verse is amazing, Across the Spider-Verse is a masterpiece, Across the Spider-Verse, Miles, stop. It ain't a great movie. It's not even good. You can even make the argument like I did. It's not even a solid movie. It's a decent movie at best, but people are blinded by the hype. The Spider Society and the plot of this movie, the canon, makes no sense. Why in the world would there be a group of high-powered spider beings that are watching over different events in the multiverse? Where is Doctor Strange? Where are the different universes, X-Men, the Avengers? You mean to tell me that because one thing doesn't happen in one timeline for Spider-Man and his specific canon, that the whole timeline just goes to shreds and dies out? It is the dumbest premise I've ever seen in a superhero movie, and I'm not joking. It's not the worst movie, but that specific premise of the Spider Society is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, bro. I've seen fan-made stuff that makes more sense than that, man. Grow up. And on top of that, the villain, the Spot. Really? Really? You're chasing down Miles Morales, who's a teenager, because he inadvertently ruined your life? I mean, this is stupid. We've seen better villains in this. We've seen Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, Doc Ock, etc. In the movie's pacing, oh my gosh. Y'all, I kid you not, I said this in my review. There were literal 10-year-olds who were falling asleep in the theater 30 minutes into the film. Because I was tired, so I'm looking around to see what everyone else is doing, and they're falling asleep. Do you know how boring your movie has to be for 10-year-olds to be falling asleep, bro? Really? I'm looking around, people are on their phones, they're looking around. This movie just simply doesn't get interesting or entertaining until an hour and 30 minutes in. And that's the problem with this movie fundamentally. Too much setup and not enough payoff. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, it's a part two. It's a part two for the... Stop. In a movie like Infinity War did to Endgame, you can set up the future while also making a good singular movie for what it is. This movie focuses way too much on all this setup and this payout, but doesn't develop enough in this movie alone, doesn't give you that intrigue, that angst. It just doesn't work for me, man. I'm sorry. And story-wise, you cannot sit here with a straight face and tell me that Miles and Gwen had better stories than Toby did in any of his movies, or that Andrew even did in his 2 movies, bro, or even Tom in No Way Home. So stop. If you don't have an all-time great story and an all-time great villain, your villain's average at best, and on top of that, you also have issues with the plot and the pacing and the overall enjoyment of the movie, how in the world is this movie deemed a masterpiece? I don't get it. I don't get it, but I'm sure little Timmy in the comments, who's 12 years old, who saw the movie, is like, well, you're just raging. You're nitpicking, bro, okay? The movie was actually pretty good. You need to calm down. Sit down, Timmy, all right? I don't want to hear nothing from you again. Don't talk to me. Acknowledge me. But anyways, yes, Cross the Spider-Verse is overrated. 6 out of 10 max. I'm done talking about that movie. But 2 weeks after Across the Spider-Verse dropped, we got The Flash, a movie that everyone seems to hate, or most people seem to hate, but I absolutely love this movie, man. I mean, from the moment I watched it, bro, I think it was like the first 15 minutes, I already knew I was going to like it at that point, man. It sounds crazy, but it's low-key true. The scene with him and Batfleck, when Batfleck is talking to him, there's just so much great dialogue. Keaton's Batman talking to Barry. Barry, with his mom at the end, and one of the most emotional scenes I've ever seen in a superhero movie. The storytelling, bro, it's just beautiful, man. You get to see pain, anger, sadness, self-discovery, self-love, and you also see Barry letting go of his past and choosing to walk into his future, man. This movie from a storytelling level is definitely the best superhero movie I've seen probably since the Snyder Cut when it comes to strictly storytelling. You know, No Way Home had a great story as well, but The Flash may be a bit... I don't know. That's close. It's close with the stories. You can say No Way Home, whatever, but this story was great in this film, man. At the end of the day, the acting is amazing by Ezra Miller. Say what you want about him, but he did a great job. Supergirl, I thought, was very cool. Zod was a little bit underutilized in this movie, but at the end of the day, I didn't even really think about that because I was too busy looking at the great dialogue, the amazing action in this movie. The VFX are hit or miss in this film, but some shots and some action sequences are really good. Like the one where he's saving the babies. You know, him and Batfleck are working together on the bridge. You have him and younger Barry working together at the end, fighting the different Kryptonian soldiers. Like, that stuff was very cool to me. It's cool to see that multiverse actually get dived into, but still keeping focus on a singular character story. Like, this movie did a lot, man. It was very entertaining, and emotionally, this movie made me feel that sadness that superhero movies and movies in general can make you feel by just having two people act on screen. You know, when Barry's saying goodbye to his mom, it was just, I don't know what it was, man. It was just so heartbreaking, bro, because we've all dealt with sadness, loss, and pain. And to see it just acted out so well, that scene just hits, man. And it's one of my favorite scenes in superhero history. And this movie has become one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, man. From top to bottom, I just think it's great. I understand people having gripes with it, man, but for me, it was awesome. That's not to mention how entertaining this movie is. I mean, if you're above the age of 40 and you saw this movie, even if you're not above the age of 40, you can have a lot of fun with seeing Michael Keaton's Batman come back, and he's saying great lines of dialogue to Barry, and he kind of realizes why he's being Batman again, and he's able to also help Barry deal with the grief coming from his parents, because, you know, Ben Affleck, or any Batman, they all lost their parents too, so it was just very, very great. Seeing Batfleck for the last time, man, that scene was just so good when he's talking to Barry, man. Don't live your past. Live your life. I mean, oh man, dude, that movie, that when it comes to the dialogue, bro, there's one or two corny lines, but outside of that, the dialogue in this movie was killer amazing, man. And at the end of the day, I do see why some people have issues with this movie, okay? And I don't think it's perfect. I think it could have been better because at the end of the day, you know, if you stuck to the original Flashpoint story from the comics and you incorporate DCEU elements like a Henry Cavill Superman more, or a Gal Gadot Wonder Woman more in actually the movie, or a Rogue Aquaman, a Rogue Wonder Woman, whatever it is, Cyborg even being in the film, Reverse Flash too, you know, everyone wanted that cameo. But when you look at this movie for what it is, a singular story about Barry Allen, while also having multiversal elements of emotion, sadness, you know, a great story, cool action scenes, the running stuff with the Flash, like, it really did a good job of all that, in my opinion. No, it did a great job of all that, in my opinion. And with what they did, with what they had, I think they did the best that they could have, and it actually turned out very, very great and a lot better than people think. Because I already talked about Blue Beetle, we can skip through August and go all the way to November, in which we got the Marvels, man. Y'all, the MCU was in shambles. I've been saying this for the last 2 years. We all know this right now, how I feel about this, man. It's bad. This movie is the epitome of everything wrong with the MCU. The forced humor, the bad dialogue, the terrible VFX, the villain is paper thin. Her name is Dar Ben. I call her Dar Bum. She's not good. Captain Marvel is a little bit less bland than she is in the first movie. Monica Rambeau doesn't have any real story arc. Miss Marvel, at least the actress, you know, she gave some effort. Iman Vellani gave some effort, but the character is still corny. Nick Fury's a joke. This man goes in Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier, to being incredible, an absolute savage, and now he's just a comedic relief character with bad lines of dialogue. And he serves nothing to the grand scheme of the MCU like he used to, man. I mean, what more is there to say? What need be said at this point? I mean, if you want to see what I thought about this movie, go back and watch the review on my channel, bro. But I can't get myself. I'm actually like, it's sad that this is what's happened to Marvel. But every level of the movie is bad. What is there to even say at this point? It's terrible. Very, very bad. So let's just move on, man. I mean, if you think this movie was good, more power to you, buddy. But this movie to me was absolutely terrible. And that's shown, you know, part of it's shown by the fact that it's one of the lowest, if not the lowest grossing MCU movie of all time, I'm pretty sure. Like, this movie is everything wrong with the MCU, just pretty much shown to you in an hour and 30 minutes of rushed garbage. And that brings us to the end of the year, in which Aquaman 2, now we'll talk about it. It came out a week ago, did make a review on it. Because honestly, man, the movie's honestly pretty bad, okay? I walked out of the theater just thinking it was mid, but after thinking about it for a few days, even a week now, the movie's straight up bad, all right? The dialogue is corny. Black Manta is one of the worst villains in the DCEU. I don't understand how you go from wanting revenge on someone who killed your father, something compelling, something dark, something interesting, and all of a sudden now you're just an absolute joke, a shell of yourself who's trying to commit global warming on the world because of a random object. Just like Multiverse of Madness, some random object corrupts Wanda. Thor: Love and Thunder, random object corrupts Gore, and that's it. It's the same generic cliche garbage. Dialogue ain't great. Aquaman was far more compelling and straight up good from a storytelling perspective in Aquaman 1 and especially in the Snyder Cut, man. And now that we get this version of Aquaman that's talking about burgers and pizza, he's like, can I get some pizzas and barbecue? Saw some za, dude. Overall, I fell asleep during this movie 2 times. That's all you need to know. This movie's a 5 or 6 out of 10. Done talking about it. Shame. And now to give my overall ranking on the year in terms of the superhero movies from worst to best. In last place, we're going to be going with the Marvels. Okay, this movie was an abomination. Next, we're going to have to go with Ant-Man Quantumania. Next is going to be Blue Beetle. Then we're going to go ahead and go with Aquaman 2, then Shazam 2, and then we're going to go with Across the Spider-Verse, and then Guardians 3. And at number 1, the best superhero movie of the year, in my opinion, was The Flash. And overall, guys, that is going to do it for the last video of mine from 2023, man. I really do appreciate all the love and support I've gotten this year and how we really, you guys were able to help me grow the channel a lot. I think we started off this year with like 600 or 700 subscribers, and now we're about to reach a little bit over 1,600 now. So it's awesome, man. And I'll always be grateful for your support. And feel free to hit me, on those social medias, man, or in the comment section, whatever. I will respond. I'll like it. I'll probably see it. So, just have fun with that, man. And I really do appreciate you guys for watching these videos. I'm in my mom's basement with a knife, with a little, poster set up in the background. I'm just trying to talk about the stuff that I love. So, the fact that you guys have enabled me to do that is absolutely awesome, man. And so I appreciate that. But yes, 2023 for superhero movies was indeed a disaster. And let me know what you guys thought about 2023 and superhero movies as well. And as always, man, I hope you guys have a very great New Year's and that you had a blessed Christmas if you celebrated. And as always, Happy New Year's, y'all. One last time for 2023. Have a great day. Peace out.